A warm winter welcome. Dr. Cheryl here. Actually, I've got a beef about how scientists talk about our seasons. Yes, it's winter now. It's January. And in a few weeks, we're going to have a very important day. But first, let's back up and talk about what the seasons are. Science tells us that because of the tilt of the Earth and the way it's orbiting the sun, we have different lengths of days, and that makes our seasons. The day when the sun is shining the longest is summer. The day when there's most darkness, that's the beginning of winter, according to scientists. And then halfway in between are spring and fall, where the day and night are equal. Those are equinoxes. And when summer is at its peak, that's called a solstice. However, I believe, as the ancient Celts did, that the days halfway between the equinoxes and the solstices and the equinoxes are really the beginning and ending of the seasons. Now, when summer is at its height with the sun way overhead and the longest days ever, would you call that the beginning of summer or the height, the middle of summer? Yeah, it's warm in June before summer in the northern hemisphere. I feel in my body that the season begins 6 weeks before the equinox or the solstice, and it switches over 6 weeks after. These days were recognized by the ancient Celts as cross-quarter holidays, and we've adopted them in our traditions. In Christianity has adopted them and given them different names, but we mark them as important times between seasonal changes. I maintain that this is at the actual beginning and ending of a season where the solstices and equinoxes are actually the middle. For example, we just had the winter solstice in December. 6 weeks before that was Halloween, or Samhain. That, I believe, is the real door to winter, because light is decreasing. It's increasingly dark at that time of year. Whereas at the winter solstice, that's when it flips. That's the point of inflection where now there's more daylight. Therefore, winter is the growing darkness and then the increasing light, just bit by bit. It's that inflection point. When winter is over, it's a day we call Groundhog Day. That's coming up pretty soon. It's also called Candlemas in the Christian tradition. Now, what happens in Pennsylvania on Groundhog Day? We watch the groundhog come out and see if he stays outside because he doesn't see his shadow, or if he sees his shadow and he runs back into his hole. So if he runs back, there's going to be more winter, but if he stays outside, spring is going to be early. The groundhog is the harbinger of spring. This is the real beginning of spring. February 2nd, Groundhog Day. I have a beef with astronomers, solar system scientists that say that the season begins on the equinox or the solstice. No, for me, in my body, I feel that the winter solstice was the peak of darkness because that's when it was the longest night. Then, as gradually the light increased, now we're hitting Groundhog Day. Groundhog Day is still not half light, half dark, but we're increasing with more rapidity towards more light. And that happens. The days which are longer start increasing the light, the hours of daylight, faster as the equinox happens. Therefore, I maintain that these cross-quarter holidays, so there's Groundhog Day or Candlemas between winter solstice and spring equinox. There's May Day between spring equinox and summer solstice. There's Lammas, which is a harvest day at the beginning of August, in between summer solstice and the autumnal equinox. And then there's Halloween between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice. These are the real days of flipping from one season to the other in my body, this is what I talk about in my book, 2020 Vision. It is a way to actually feel these cycles, feel nature, and then allow them to support us. I love the seasons, and we're coming up to some shifts. So celebrate with me with this challenge starting at the Chinese New Year or Lunar New Year, and we end on Groundhog Day, which is, for me, the harbinger of spring. Welcome spring, and I invite you to join me on this 10-day challenge moving into Groundhog Day, starting on the Lunar New Year. Happy New Year!